Hey, what's up everybody? Brent from Brenspeed. Thank you so much for watching Brenspeed TV. Today's awesome because it's a 67 Mustang Coyote Swap. Now I know some of you have seen this in our shop tours. We're gonna take a very close look at it today. Here's what we're gonna look at. All right, most importantly, we're gonna talk about the Coyote Swap. And guess what? Today, Roush Supercharged. We're also gonna check out the interior of this car and not only talk about the gauges that are in this, but this awesome 6R80 6-speed automatic shifter that we installed. Doug, check that out. And how do you stop a car like this? Bare brakes, front and rear. We're going to check that out. And lastly, how do you get a Coyote in a 67 Mustang? We're going to talk about the K member, transmission, exhaust. Hey, this thing even has QTP cutouts, drive shaft, a lot of different things you have to do. Let's get started. Now that I've told you what we're going to look at, hey, if you haven't, please subscribe and notify. Let's get us up to date on all our cool videos on Mustangs like this, F-150s, everything else. Now let's get this thing inside and check it out. All right, here's what we have going. 67 Mustang. So this car actually came in already slightly converted. Not all the cool stuff I'm going to show you, but it already was like what I would call a resto mod. Had some really nice interior, some race seats, rear seat delete, had some upgraded brakes, suspension, and had a 347 stroker. He wanted more power. And this is going to start off as a naturally aspirated Coyote conversion. Why do you want to do Coyote conversion on these cars? Because of reliability. Starts every time you want to start it, you get good gas mileage, and they're awesome. But then he's like, hey, I want to get supercharged. We're going to go look at that in a minute, but it's Roush Supercharged. It's our Phase 2 kit. It's a Gen 2 Coyote, so that's what came in the 15 to 17 Mustang. And the Gen 2, 15 to 17 with a Stage 2, or they call it Phase 2, Roush kit, 727 horsepower. We use this 6R80 automatic transmission. This car is going to start good, it's going to drive good, it's going to get good mile per gallon. I'm going to tell you right now, on the street, it is super fast. So I'm going to get George and Dom over here. They're going to talk a little bit more about this car. We're going to look underneath it. Like I told you earlier, we're going to check out the engine and figure out exactly what it takes to put a Coyote in a 67 Mustang. All right, a couple things. Before I bring the boys over to talk a bit more about this, I want you to take a look at this engine compartment. Boom. Now, hey, these things just don't fall right down in. We're talking Gen 2 Coyote, so you understand that's what comes in the 15 to 17 Mustang. Roush TVS Supercharger. Completely custom made air induction system. This is a cool setup. Now, just like if you have a 15 to 17 Mustang and you come in here for a setup like this, has all the cooling mods. So this particular car has a big CNR radiator, a rear cylinder head cooling kit, and a cooler thermostat. That's going to keep everything nice and cool because we're talking a high compression engine right here, making a lot of power. You know, flywheel rated 727. You need to keep this engine cool. But yeah, I think that looks really good right there. You know, a lot of, custom requests go on. If you're going to build a car like this, you're going to have a lot of requests. So a lot of you are like, hey, what's this cost to get installed? It doesn't really work that way. What do you want, You could take a car like this, you could do it 100 different ways. But even this custom strut tower brace going on back here, I mean, that's something we built for this car right here. And this thing came out really good. So I'm going to go get Dom and George right now. They're going to come out. They're going to talk about the brakes, the suspension, and how do you even wire this up, What electronic system to use to get this thing running, and how's it work? I'll go get them right now. All right, so I went and found Dom and George. This is George right here. This is Dom. So George designs all these builds. Dom's building it. And I thought what we could do real quick is they could show you exactly what's it take to put a Coyote in a 67 Mustang. And then right now we're going to talk about maybe what computer system did we use to make it run. So do you guys want to kind of pick it up from here and let everyone know?
Yeah.
Who's first?
All right. Well, I would say, Dom, it takes a lot. There's a ton of work that goes into this car, a ton of planning and communication with the client, and then, a ton of work on the back end, just getting everything in there. So if you're asking how to make it fit, basically we use the AJE tubular K member. It comes with its own coilover system. These are AJE shock tower boxes that we have to put in. They're lower profile than the factory. The factory boxes will not allow the engine to fit in. So that's how we got it in there. We did have to make a custom engine mount, basically, to lower it down far enough to where we could close the hood. We did not really have to modify the hood at all to get this to fit underneath. And then to run the system, we used a Ford Racing control pack.
Yep.
So Dom, you know, as far as the Ford Racing control pack on this car, because we use those on a lot of different builds and everything. And sometimes we use a factory computer, which a lot of times can be a little bit harder. But the Ford Racing control pack on this setup, like, what's your opinion on that? Putting this in here, like, pretty
In my
easier
opinion,
than trying to use a factory computer, or harder?
in my opinion, the control pack's always the way to go. It's much easier to wire in. There's a lot of components there with the factory stuff that are eliminated, and it just makes the entire install easier. Wiring's easier. Hooking the ignition up from pretty much anything you have is a lot easier, and just getting everything connected to the motor in the car to jive together, it's just leaps and bounds.
You know, something I didn't mention earlier is, you know, fuel system. So we're going to lift this car up. I want to show you the inside of this car, and we're going to look underneath the car. But fuel system, you know, we did a return style fuel system on this. There's a lot of different ways to do that, but we used Detroit 95-pound fuel injectors. Is that correct on this right here?
95.
And then the return style fuel system. You know, when you're kind of looking at, like, man, I want to do a Coyote Swap, and I saw an engine at a junkyard, and they're like $3,000. I mean, that is so far off of what it takes to do a nice build. You know, I encourage someone, if you want to try to do something at home, you know, maybe do it. But if you want something like this built, this is what we do here. We can do new engines, used engines. There's lots of ways to do it. But, you know, fuel system, computer, wiring, like, this has AC on it, right? So
Yeah.
we have functional AC on this car right here. There's just so many little things you got to think about to make everything work. But the engine compartment came out awesome. So what do you think about maybe right now George, maybe get inside? I made a comment earlier about the shifter because I loved it. So we've done these conversions before where we retrofit a factory shifter. I love the shifter in this car. So let's hop inside real quick and tell a little bit more about it.
All right, so now we're in the interior of the vehicle, and check out these classic instruments gauges. These are actually already in the vehicle, and we're able to run all these gauges off the Ford Racing control pack. With the exception of the speedometer, it's ran off GPS. We also have a boost gauge and a voltmeter over here. The voltmeter and clock were already in the car. We added the boost gauge, and then we utilized the low car 6R80 automatic transmission shifter. This shifter is pretty awesome, and it incorporates select shift. So if you move it all the way down into S, push it over, you're able to upshift, downshift, just like a manual, pop it back over, you're in automatic mode again. One other really cool thing I like in the interior is the vintage AC system that we use uses the factory control. So depending on where these are at, it'll set it for defrost, AC, or heat. And then you have a blower fan speed also. Interior came out really good. So now we should check out the underside of the vehicle.
All right, we're underneath the Sweet 67. I'm gonna have these guys tell you a little bit about it. But basically, you're using, as a K member, AGE. AGE is an awesome company, and they make a very sweet K member for this car to drop the Coyote in. And guys, I want you to tell them a little bit about the exhaust. I will tell you we're using Doug's headers on this, jet hot coated. And then we made some custom exhaust, Borla mufflers, QTB cutouts. And if you don't mind, tell them a little bit about the drive shaft we have made. The rear end is already in this car, so we got to reuse the custom rear end that was already in the car. And then I'm going to go a little bit over the bare brakes. So show them this real quick.
Okay, so again, AJE tubular K member, tubular A arms, and coilovers. This is like a New Edge power steering rack. So 99 to 04, we also use the power steering pump out of that vehicle. It utilizes the PVH accessory drive kit. We've got an all-star performance power steering cooler. And then moving back, the Doug's headers. So the Doug's headers pretty much install, pretty straightforward, but Dom actually made this custom exhaust system. So Dom, why don't you tell them a little bit about that?
So the customer wanted to do 3-inch exhaust all the way back, and to do that, one of his requests was also having the exhaust go over the rear end where factory would be. So I had to pie cut and make quite a few little bends to clear the suspension that was already in the car. One of the cool things also, the car came in with a bunch of the rear suspension already done, subframe connectors, Ridetech coilovers. So that was really nice, and it's got a Curry third member in it. But fitting the exhaust was a little rough. It gets pretty tight in some spots, but we got it in there and it sounds awesome.
So that's a Tanks Inc. Mustang tank. It basically uses a 525 liter per hour fuel pump, and then we have a custom line setup that we made going up to a 4 Innovations regulator. And it did come with the Curry 9-inch rear end, 4-link already installed, and we had a custom drive shaft made from the actual exchange.
The cool thing about that 525 is, I mean, it's obviously good for naturally aspirated, but it works for the blower too.
Yep, it
So-
pushes enough to support the power that the Roush blower makes. If we were trying to get more power out of the vehicle, we might go with something else, maybe even a dual pump setup. But right now the single pump does what it does, and it also will support E85.
So let's bring this down a little bit, and I'll bring it down, and I want to, if you don't mind, show them these brakes, how you can get them custom matched.
So basically on the car, we've got bare brakes front and rear. These are 12.8-inch rotors. They're 2-piece to bring down heat, and then we had them custom coated. This is called Blue Ice. Bear has a bunch of different colors you can choose from. Unlike other companies that have just 1 or 2 colors, I think they have about 30 different colors to choose from.
Hey, so all in all, this is a sweet car. If you have any questions, of course, leave a comment. I'll do my best to answer. There's a lot going on with this car right here. You know, here at Brenspeed, we do a lot of custom builds. We love taking new technology and putting it in your dream car. You might have, who knows what it is. Doesn't matter. But we can put new technology in it. So leave that comment, happy to answer. Subscribe it, notify, so you're going to stay up to date. And this is George right here. I got Dom right here. And George is the mastermind behind, like, what do we got to put on these cars. Dom's doing the custom builds. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Again, leave that comment. I'll do my best to answer. Have a good one.